I'm trying to get my background set up. I'll be with you in a better way soon.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be going on shortly. Thank you for your patience. Chair Palmieri, we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jimmy Palmieri, and I am the chair of the Human Services Commission for the City of West Hollywood. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 meeting. In an effort to protect public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19, AB 361 has authorized public meetings to take place via teleconference because state and local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. To view the Human Services Commission meeting, please note that the Zoom platform is the official viewing platform for this meeting. To afford the public with an additional viewing option and in order to expand access to our public meetings, this meeting is also live streamed as a courtesy on YouTube, youtube.com/WehoTV. However, because YouTube is a third party and operates independently from the City of West Hollywood, the streaming reliability cannot be guaranteed. Can we call the meeting to order? Okay. I'd like to get Adam, Commissioner Darvish,
Yes,
to say the pledge.
sure. Put your hand on over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to
the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Darvish. Jenny, can we get a roll call? Or Joyce?
Of course. Commissioner Borelli will be absent tonight. Commissioner Byers,
Present.
Commissioner Darvish,
Sorry, I was on mute. Present.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Here.
Commissioner Vice Chair Melter,
Here.
Chair Palmieri.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. C, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Vice Chair Meltzer,
Second.
second by Commissioner Byers. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Byers,
Yes.
Commissioner Darvish,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ms. Melter,
Yes.
Chair Palmieri.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Approval of minutes.
I have a
Anyone?
correction.
Okay,
Go ahead.
sorry. Did you say you have a correction?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I wanted to correct, it said that I asked about the smoking ordinance, and I just wanted to clarify what I was talking about, which was non-compliance in the West Hollywood Park. Rather, what residents can do if people are smoking in the park. Thank you.
is that noted, Jenny or David?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we now get approval of the corrected
So moved
minutes?
as amended.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Davis,
A second.
second by Commissioner Freiberg. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Byers,
Yes.
Commissioner Darvish,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melter,
Yes.
Chair Palmieri.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. It is now time for public comment. The Human Services Commission values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, the Human Services Commission cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Members of the public have 3 minutes to speak. This public comment period is to address the Human Services Commission on agenda items or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the Human Services Commission. An additional public comment period is offered at the end of the meeting. Jenny, do we have any public comment right now?
Yes, we do. Yola Dora is here to speak. I'm asking Yola to go on camera. Yola, are you in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, commissioners, staff, and honored guests. My name is Yola Dore. I'm a resident of West Hollywood. I'm speaking tonight for myself, not for the board. With everything going on in the world today, the pandemic we've experienced, the state of our city, our union, the situation overseas, catastrophic illness, and issues with seniors, those with disabilities, in fact, our friends and constituents that are from Ukraine, and many of your friends have had issues beyond which we've ever had to deal with. I'm asking you tonight, in making the all-important budget decisions, to consider this. Case management does not always include counseling. Counseling does not always include case management. Case management covers some of the needs that people will be seeing going forward with food insecurities, the rising costs associated with what's going on in the world today, the cost of gasoline that will affect our transportation everywhere. Every single item you can conceive of will be going up. We need to do something here in our fine city to make appropriations for these items. I beg you, please consider this when you're making your budget. People are depending on you going forward, and I thank you so much.
Thank you, Yola. Jenny, anyone else?
We haven't been emailed any requests for public comment, but I would like to invite the public. If you haven't registered for a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature and we'll call you up under item 1E. If you're not interested in speaking at this moment, we can call you up under public comment number 7.
Anyone?
At the moment, we do not have any public comments. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, consent calendar is approved by default. Number 3, unfinished business. 3A, social services program priorities 2022 to 2025 funding process. And I believe David is going to be taking this right now.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm David Juni. I'm the manager of the City Social Services Division. And this evening, the Human Services Commission will discuss service priorities for the 2022 through 2025 social services funding process with the chairs or designees of the advisory boards, the Public Safety and Rent Stabilization Commission, and the Social Justice Task Force. Over the past month and a half, the end of January, the beginning of February, the social services staff attended each of the board, commission, and task force meetings and presented the following questions for their discussion. The first question was, what are the significant social services needs of the constituency your board represents? Question number 2, have there been recent changes to services needs or service delivery for the constituency your board or other body represents? And number 3, what barriers might there be to your constituency accessing available services? We received input from each of the bodies and summarized them and sent out the document to the representatives that are here this evening so that they can reference the input they received from their fellow members. So with that, I will turn it, they've all been instructed that they will each speak for up to 3 minutes on the input they received, and I'll turn it back over to Chair Palmieri.
Thank you very much, David. I would just like to mention that it is 3 minutes per board or commission, not 3 minutes per person. So if there's more than one of you, it's just 3 minutes. And I believe, okay, so this, I want to explain how I want to do this so that it stays in order. We will call up each board or commission. They'll give their 3 minutes, and then I'll go around and ask the commissioners if they have any questions, and then we can move on to the next. Okay. So speaker number 1 is Public Safety Commission. I'm sorry, I can't read this. I have visual disturbance. Carrie Balboa. Or Balboan.
Commissioner Balbone, you're muted.
Okay, I'm not showing muted on my end. Can you hear me
It's
now?
good. It's great.
Okay,
Now.
great. Thank you. Thank you first for the outreach and the opportunity to be here. And thank you for David Juni for walking through this exercise with the Public Safety Commission on February 14th. I'm going to run through some of the needs that we've seen as a Public Safety Commission. Supportive services for assault victims, including advocate services and assault service hotlines for people suffering from sexual assault and rape in the city of West Hollywood. Additional support and increased services for homeless folks, including extended hours and weekends consistently. Dedicated and defined support for people struggling with severe mental health issues, including psychosis, schizophrenia, and deteriorated mental health status due to substance use disorder. Bed availability and housing access for people struggling with severe behavioral health issues. Investing in organizations to help qualify people for Medi-Cal as an extension of support services in the community. And then I'd like to echo Yola Dore's comments earlier this evening about the inflation impacts to food and utilities, as well as continuing rental assistance and support for people in West Hollywood. Barriers that we are seeing or changes in services is a growing population of people who need severe mental health support, growing unhoused population in the city of West Hollywood, needs for immediate and creative responses to those populations, and barriers that the community is not always aware of the support services that are available in the community. So platforms that help people and continue to help people understand the services that are offered. Barriers for services we're seeing in the city include the distance needed to travel for rape crisis services and some of the disjointed ways that happens for someone in crisis. We'd like to have advocacy to help streamline that process for people who are going through that unfortunate situation. We also think people with diminished capacity have issues in accessing services, including unhoused people who are suffering from mental health, as I've mentioned. And then lastly, inflationary impacts for everyone in the community, people on the verge of struggling with housing issues, as well as people struggling with food and other utility insecurity. That's what we came up with in the Public Safety Commission. And thank you for asking us to participate.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. Would you hang around for a few questions if there are any? I'm just going to go through the commissioners. Commissioner Darvish, any questions or comment? Okay, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Freiberg.
I don't. Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. David, is it possible to get a list of what they're asking for? So this way, well, because I'm sitting here taking notes, and it'd be really helpful if we could get a list of what they're requesting.
Absolutely. We had, as I mentioned, Commissioner Freiberg, we gave them a summary of the input we received when we went, so we can provide that to the commission as well.
Okay.
And Commissioner Balbone, if there's any, revisions or additions to what we sent to you, put that on there and send it back. We'll bring this as an attachment to a future item to the commission, so they have that.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Freiberg. I was thinking the same thing. I want to look at the folks while they're speaking. Commissioner Byers?
Yes, I just have one clarifying question, Commissioner Balbone. I appreciate you being here. The bed availability and access, is that within the within West Hollywood or just within the context of what our service providers are able to acquire in general?
I think it's a general statement and very specifically bed access for people who are mentally unstable due to diminished capacity.
Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it. That's all.
Vice Chair Meltzer?
Thank you. I have no questions.
Nor do I. I would just like to thank you, Commissioner Balbone. These are all really important items, and I'm sure that we'll be going over them again. The next person up is Rent Stabilization Commissioner Karen Byers, to be followed by Disability Advisory Board Member Patrick Blood. Karen?
Hi, thank you for having me. It's Karen Ayers. I'm not Chelsea's sister.
I have visual problems and I see the letters that aren't in there.
So I'd love to be Chelsea's sister. So Rent Stabilization Commission, our constituency is basically renters, landlords, and others residing in West Hollywood, not just those in rent stabilized housing. The significant social service needs of our constituency, they include services that already fall under the Rent Stabilization and Housing Division, like the Rent Stabilization Information Line, the Rent Stabilization Hearing Process, which is used to resolve tenant-landlord disputes. There's also rental assistance programs that the city coordinates, ongoing programs, as well as the temporary programs for the COVID response. The city also coordinates legal resources with BETSEDIC and the Coalition for Economic Survival, which provides very valuable legal guidance for our city's renters. And also people experiencing housing insecurities are also potentially in need of other services. You know what I mean? If they're not making the rent, chances are they're not getting enough food, they're not paying their health care bills or even obtaining health care because they feel they can't afford it. They may have needs for transportation. Have there been changes to service needs or service delivery? Well, the COVID pandemic has increased the need for housing services. I think we all know that. Changes to income and employment during the pandemic has affected the ability for many people to pay their rent, sometimes for a month or two, sometimes it's ongoing. Also, I've noticed that maybe a little more than usual, it seems like we have a lot of renters moving out of the city into maybe cheaper places to live. And we have new tenants coming into the city, which means we probably have, new people who aren't familiar with the city's services and everything that the city has to offer. People who have never had to seek out services before are reaching out. That's been a change. So they don't know how to navigate the system. They don't know that, they don't have to necessarily go to the county. The city can be their first point of contact for these, their point of entry into the services that they might need. So I think that there is ignorance on the part of some renters, and the legal services we offer can go a long way with that. And sometimes there's ignorance or willful ignorance on the part of housing managers and landlords. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Commissioner Ayers. Can you please hang for a couple of questions, maybe? I'll start with Commissioner Byers. Anything? Okay. Commissioner Freiberg, anything?
No, thank you for your input, though.
Commissioner Davis? Commissioner Darvish?
Just have a quick question. Thank you for a great presentation. Is how how we communicate with those new renters that come into to the city, and the ones that move away. And I've seen that trend kind of happening in last year and the year before, more so during the pandemic. But do we send the new sort of tenants a newsletter, or do we just send them a link on email? Or
I don't think new tenants automatically get a welcome email or anything, but if they're in rent stabilized housing, they will get the newsletter that the city puts out, which is really great. And one of my comments to David when he visited our commission was perhaps all renters should receive that newsletter, not just those in rent stabilized housing, because there are housing ordinances and services that affect all renters, regardless of whether they're in rent stabilized housing or not. And another point I made was there's a need for the city to communicate to residents in various methods and formats. There's the website, there's social media, pamphlets, city events. The more the message goes out in different ways, the better there's a chance that it connects with the people who need them.
Thank you. Vice Chair Meltzer, anything?
Thank you, Karen. I have no questions.
I want to thank you, and I agree with one of these items, that navigation through the system, if you're new to it, it could be daunting, and assistance with that would be fantastic. Thank you so much, Commissioner Ayers. Next up, we have Disability Advisory Board member Patrick Blood, to be followed by Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board members Robert Gamboa and Zakiah Wright. Patrick?
Yes. Hi, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Patrick Ryan Blood. I am the Chair of the Disabilities Advisory Board, and it is such an honor to be here with you tonight. And I do not envy the tasks ahead of you as you make all of these very difficult decisions. So in advance, thank you so much. Since I'm limited to 3 minutes, I'm going to power through this and stick around in case there are questions. There are significant needs for social services within our constituency. One being transportation. Metro has cut many lines and eliminated some of the stops on existing lines. And so accessible transportations for persons with disabilities is a huge barrier, and it's only increased since the pandemic. West Hollywood transportation programs are too crowded, and it's been too difficult to find an appointment for a ride. We therefore need more access to transportation funding in order to find such rides. Many community members are struggling with catastrophic illness because of COVID-19. Social services needs to be in-home support, prescription copays, mental health care checks, case management, food insecurity, telecheck, grief support for those who have lost a loved one. It's really that one-on-one check-in that really makes a difference, especially with persons living with disabilities and suffering from grief or loss. Affordable housing is, of course, an issue. And on that note, laws such as the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act and people facing eviction. We need more services to protect people living with disabilities who are facing these laws, which would otherwise all but get them evicted. We need more publicizing of social services programs and a simple single application that can be used for all of West Hollywood programs. Instead of filling out numerous forms, numerous applications, make it a one-stop shop and find the funding in order to allow for that one-stop shop, especially for persons with disabilities who might need that extra assistance. We need to expand those legal services to include Americans with Disability Act complaints. We already have services that render legal services. We ask that we are able to find funding to expand that for 88 complaints. We also are looking for social service contracts that address safety, crime, and homelessness, as well as contracts that ensure streets are free from barriers such as scooters and e-cycles, which pose an immediate accessibility issue for persons with disability. The pandemic has disrupted service deliveries and caused additional negative health outcomes, isolationism, depression, anxiety. Also, the need for assistive technology resources. Persons with disabilities who don't have technology resources won't be able to access easily all of the resources we have to offer. I will wrap it up by just saying that I really appreciate you, and we really need to focus on keeping persons with disabilities safe and being checked in on and getting the services that we really need, including maybe a volunteer corps to assist with things that the sheriff or other organizations can't. So thank you so much, and I will of course stick around for any follow-ups.
Thank you, Board Member Blood. I will go around with the commissioners and see if they have any questions for you. I'll start with Commissioner Davis.
Ooh, yes, thank you very much for pointing out the one-stop shop. It's something that I've been thinking about, and I know from personal experience that if you fill out a bunch of forms in one organization, you shouldn't have to fill out the same bunch of forms every time you go to an organization. So there needs to be some kind of a streamline to that. I'm not certain how it would work, but I agree with you. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Vice Chair Meltzer.
No, thank you very much. I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Darvish.
Yeah, thank you. Great job, Patrick. We did hear you last time. I think it was last month where you asked us to focus more on these items. I've heard about transportation issues and the schedules, especially during the pandemic. I guess it took time in advance to schedule a ride. That's been a challenge. That was really visible to many of us. I was just wondering, is there a survey done with our disabled population in the city and their needs, so we could maybe highlight what's the highest priority and going down the list that we could focus on? Obviously that population to me is one that we really need to focus on. As you mentioned last time, some of it is not visible. Even disability includes a lot of stuff. Myself being healthcare, I'm very familiar with that. But I was just wondering if there's like a ranking or any sort of a needs assessment.
Transportation definitely is towards the top. The really simple accessibility is truly a fundamental right, and those living with disabilities who are blocked from transportation and being able to access services themselves really poses an extreme barrier. And it's disproportionately affecting our community, persons living with disabilities, regarding transportation and affordable housing, and the healthcare and real check-ins on individuals are also really top priority here.
Thank you. Commissioner Freiberg.
I actually heard it all because I sat in on their meeting when they were going through their list, and it's a very long list they have, which I do have. So that's covered, Patrick. You don't have to worry about that. I think the one thing, I don't think anyone's going to probably have this answer, but I was also, sorry, my computer keeps going on. I was also curious to whether Bet2Zach does deal with ADA complaints. Is that something they're capable of doing if someone had a complaint?
Commissioner Freiberg, thank you so much for that question. At this time, it is my understanding that Bet2Zach does not handle ADA complaints, which is why that was part of our list here, was to expand the legal services that are rendered by whether it's Bet2Zach or another agency that can assist. Bet2Zach renders certain services to keep people in their homes and other services, but ADA complaints, as far as I know, are not covered under the contract with Bet2Zach.
Okay, and my other question would be, because I know everyone had mentioned transportation, and I know transportation was always there was really not too many problems. I think it was one of the things that everyone was always happy with when I was on the DAB. And so when everybody brought up transportation, it sounded like it went more towards metro and not having enough drivers, which I don't think we have any control over something like that. But, of course, we can look into what we can do locally.
Yes, Commissioner Freiberg, that's correct. Metro has cut many of the lines, and West Hollywood has the power to find within our own community agencies that can render those services that are currently lacking due to Metro cutting lines. As far as drivers and availability, that's absolutely something we need to further look into, because when individuals who are requesting rides, they run into barriers quite frequently. That has been feedback that we have received with, in the community and with fellow board members who do require such services, because they are persons who use a mobility device and such as a wheelchair, and have had real struggles in order to live their everyday life, especially to make medical appointments, making doctor visits, things that are really critical to the community. So within West Hollywood, Commissioner, we do have that power to find funding that's outside of Metro, even if we don't have the power to direct Metro and what their lines are.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Byers, did I call on you already? Okay, Commissioner Byers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick, for being here. I'm sorry. I really appreciate hearing what you said about transportation. It is something I've heard from other folks in the community, just sort of about that missing middle, the gap services that we are in control of in West Hollywood. So just to reflect, I'm interested in following up and hearing more about experiences there, but really appreciate you bringing that to light and everything else you did too. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Board Member Blood. I appreciate your comments, and I no longer drive because of vision disability, and transportation is very important to me. So please know that that will be at the forefront of my mind also. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commission. I appreciate your time.
Next, we have Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board members Robert Gamboa and Zakiya Wright, to be followed by Russian Advisory Board member Eugene Maysky.
All right, good evening. Good evening. I'll kick us off. My name is Zakiya Wright. My pronouns are they and them, and I am one of the board members from the Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board. Even though we are called the Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board, we do take the view that we represent the LGBTQ+ community. And collectively, our board found that there needs to be either increased services, more visibility of service offerings, or greater access to services. And we found that in the areas of substance abuse, HIV and AIDS, PEP and PrEP availability, healthcare for lesbian, queer, bi women, public safety issues, specifically how to protect yourself, mental health services, and some of the examples were holistic programming like BIPOC yoga, affordable housing, which a lot of folks have mentioned, assistance with animals, Paul's LA was one of the examples, food and nutrition services, sexual assault assistant, long-term counseling for victims of sexual assault, Plan B availability, 24 hours, employment services, an expansion of legal services specifically for sexual abuse and sexual assault individuals. And I will kick it over to my counterpart.
We have a very long list which we will submit, and thank you, Board Member Wright. So I think this is great to hear all the other board members and commissioners, because there's a lot of similarities here. One of the three, if I could group things into three buckets, the cost of living, it was already skyrocketing and becoming outrageous in West Hollywood prior to COVID. And then with this COVID inflation, there are many residents that are just getting priced out of West Hollywood. And what that means is that people are being forced to leave West Hollywood and not receive access to the culturally competent or trauma-informed care services that they're used to getting, right? So this is a problem when already, one of the other buckets is that too many services are outside of West Hollywood. And I think other people have spoken to this, that transportation to and from these services that are outside of outside of the city are just becoming increasingly problematic, as mentioned by resident Villadore. So how can we find ways to bring more services into West Hollywood? And in doing so, this means increasing access to care, access to services, so that we can reduce racial barriers, reduce gender barriers and gender identity barriers, right? And finding more population-specific targeted approach to outreach so that these community members can understand what services are available and what these services can do for them to Commissioner Ayers' point earlier. So a lot of really great overlap here. I know we're very short on time. We only had 90 seconds, so there you go.
Thank you, board members. I will ask Vice Chair Meltzer if you beat the bell.
Was that for me?
Okay, Vice Chair Meltzer, anything?
No, thank you both very much for your presentation. I have no questions.
Your 1 second. Well, your 1 second ran out. Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Darvish.
Was one a great job, by the way, Board Wright and Board Member Gamboa. About public safety, I think Board Member Wright had mentioned that. Is that a huge focus? Is that, or the population targeted on the streets? I was just trying to understand what public safety, how critical that is.
Absolutely. And I think I can answer that sort of two different ways. Yes, I think there has been sort of an uptick to our knowledge of, sexual assaults. There was certainly one back in December to a member of the LGBTQ community that really sort of sparked a lot of conversations and sort of led us to starting different subcommittees trying to address it. So yes, it certainly is sort of one of the top of the list for us, even though our list was very long. And I think, I think we address it in two ways. One, having greater sort of legal support for victims of sexual assault. We found that the system in this specific case really failed that victim. And then, being able to arm ourselves or that self-defense classes or something of that nature, to help us to defend ourselves as well.
Thank you.
Are you through, Commissioner Darvish?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Byers?
No questions. Appreciate you both being here tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Freiberg?
No questions. Thanks for your input.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to thank both of you for presenting what is needed for a large portion of our community. And we will keep that in mind, trust me. Thank you very much. Next up is Russian Advisory Board member Eugene Maysky, to be followed by Senior Advisory Board member John Allendorfer.
Hi, good evening, Chair Palmieri, Vice Chair Meltzer, Commissioners, staff members. My name is Eugene Maysky. I'm a chair of the Russian Advisory Board. I would like to say thank you to David Juni for coming to our board meeting and helping us out with this and actually starting the discussion on this. So the first question that we were faced with is the significant social services that our community is in need of. So the first thing is aging in place. We need to outreach to provide more information regarding services and resources that are available. Second is affordable housing. Information for senior residents who do not have access to digital devices. And following up and piggybacking on that, digital device and language barrier is still a huge issue for many residents. So access to information about tenants' rights and other resources for non-digital users, for example, flyers on bulletin boards and community announcements boards, flyers in receptions of doctors' offices, beauty salons, shops, building foyers, TV announcements, and other ways would be very helpful for members of the Russian-speaking community. More education regarding not only vaccination, but medical issues and safety, as well as a response to safety concerns that unfortunately a lot of members of the community are having. Discounted internet services and technology education would be very appreciated. And 6 is better communication between JFS and the city and other contractors of the city and city staff, so we have more knowledge of what's going on, so it's more available to the members of the community. The second question is, I think, also the question we ask ourselves as the board members: what is the most accessible way for the community to receive information? So for our cultural specifics, mailings in Russian as in English language, both emailings and mailings would be helpful. Also flyers in senior buildings in Russian and in English. There are about 17 buildings for seniors and people living with disabilities in the city of West Hollywood, so we probably need to reach out to the residence managers of those buildings. Reach out to younger generation, children, grandchildren, and caregivers. Many of them are the first point of contact for the older members of the community, and engage them and inform them of what's going on, what services are available. That would be a great help. And the third thing would be actually have a Russian-speaking person in City Hall, because a lot of members of the community prefer to speak with the live person. Thank you so much. I appreciate this chance to speak with the members of the commission.
Thank you, Board Member.
And I'm open to any questions you would have.
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Freiberg.
No questions, but thank you for your input.
Commissioner Darvish.
Just thank you for the presentation. I see that, the need is so similar to just overall or disabled population or elderly population. It just saddens me that we can't provide digital, devices or just the simple Wi-Fi. I think that's an issue for a lot of elderly and disabled people that cannot afford it at home, and that definitely should be something we need to make a priority for all. But thank you for the presentation. And myself being an immigrant, I totally understand the need for a translator and just the cultural differences, how we communicate. So thank you.
Thank you. There are several agencies in West Hollywood that are trying to provide those services, but we believe that it's not enough. That point should be worked on, definitely.
Vice Chair Meltzer.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis.
No, thank you, but thank you for the information.
Commissioner Byers.
No questions. Thanks for being here.
Board Member Maisky, I have no questions, but thank you so much for the updated information. It will be coming very handy for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Senior Advisory Board Member John Allendorfer, to be followed by Transgender Advisory Board Member Eden Anai Luna.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Palmieri and Commission members. A lot of you have already touched on a lot of the things that we came up with. Number one being affordable, low-income housing. That's like the number one priority. And a perfect example of that would be to we definitely encourage the lot on Santa Monica and Crescent Heights to be considered for senior housing, as an example. Also, when it comes to senior housing, we advocate for more assistance living facilities in the city of West Hollywood. And then also, when seniors are given an eviction notice, they need help finding a place, how to cope with it. So those are three areas of housing that we would like to see the city, the services really put an emphasis on. Also, there's a need to for seniors to stay in contact with one another. During the pandemic, well, before the pandemic, we had a Seniors in Action where we met locally at the community room next to the library, and it was very good. We had a core group of seniors who would get together once a month and connect. And during the pandemic, we maintained it by our Zoom meetings, and we still continue it, and we would like to see that continue. But seniors should be encouraged to connect, to interact with each other, because a lot of them are by themselves, and we need to connect. Also, transportation. Yeah, transportation is a biggie, but I encourage that we should encourage seniors to use their TAP card. Make seniors use their TAP card, tell them about it, where they can find out. Also, and I want to give praise to the social services. Are you going to do another 22 social service guide? That was really good. Let's do one for 22. So you guys are doing a good job, but activity, yeah, the activities in person. We should have them, we should continue virtual and we should continue in person, especially with the West Hollywood Park, the new West Hollywood Park. Let's get seniors over to that park. Let's have a staff person create activities, oversee seniors, and for them to enjoy the park and the swimming pool. Changes, yeah, there have been changes. Pandemic, that was the biggest change, and it made isolation for a lot of people. But as we did prove with our Zoom meetings through Seniors in Action, we were able to communicate with people. Barriers, well, seniors, one barrier, I don't know if the city can do anything, but one barrier that seniors face is they live on a fixed income. And that's why housing is so needed. That's why relief is needed. And maybe when it comes to finding housing, I know there's a list at the city where you can go and you can find out, put your name on the list, but let's make seniors more aware of that list and how the list is going. That's it.
Thank you very much, Board Member Allendorf. I will ask our commissioners for questions. I'll start with Commissioner Davis.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Vice Chair Meltzer,
No, thank you very much.
Commissioner Darvish,
No question, thank you.
Commissioner Byers,
No questions. Thanks so much.
Commissioner Freiberg.
No questions, but thank you for your input.
I have no questions either, Board Member Allendorf, but I want to thank you very much for your information.
Thank you.
Next up is Transgender Advisory Board Member Eden Anai Luna, to be followed by Women's Advisory Board Member Angela De Silva.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Excuse my voice, I'm recovering from COVID, so if it goes in and out, I'm so sorry. So happy International Women's Day. So very briefly on the needs that we discussed with the Trans Advisory Board, there was a lot of overlap, especially with some of the other commissions and the advisory boards that we've already heard from. But our members have expressed, especially this year, resources for survivors of sexual assault, sexual violence, intimate partner violence, stalking, and hate crimes, transitional housing for trans men, trans masculine, and non-binary individuals, street medicine and linkage to care, especially those for those who are undocumented and working in street economies. Our members have also expressed health insurance navigation services, again, especially for our undocumented persons into Medi-Cal, space to discuss racial bias and discrimination for those experiencing these biases, affordable housing, education around COVID-19 and the vaccinations and the virus, technology training and providing technology such as phones, tablets, and laptops so that our members can access services that are virtual, training for staff at bars and other establishments to make sure that the safety of trans patrons and the safety of employees as well are also taken into account, and using inclusive language in all programs. As well as increase awareness for services available in West Hollywood. In relation to the emerging needs and the service delivery that's been impacted by COVID-19, a lot of it has been largely around the work that has been shifted to remote. Virtual programs can exacerbate dysphoria and trauma for individuals who are staring at themselves on screen all day. And so there are members who would prefer to meet in person or to have video off for these services. There's also fewer unhoused trans individuals in the streets, and providers are not seeing them as often as in the past. And lastly, we have here for any additional barriers that our constituency is accessing for services. Our members have indicated that trans older adults have challenges accessing virtual programming again, and technology continues to be a barrier. Lack of inclusive programming is also a barrier for survivors of sexual assault and intimate partner violence that need that confidentiality and that safety. Just domestic violence shelters are also typically not inclusive for the community. People feel a little mistrustful as far as the providers of shelters and housing services for trans people. And COVID-19 related isolation and loneliness continue to be a problem as well. Members are often not aware of existing programs, and being undocumented is also a barrier for service too. And so I think generally overall we're seeing a need for services for our undocumented people, folks with who are unhoused, folks who are survivors of violence, especially services for trans masculine and non-binary individuals in the sector. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Luna. I'll go around and ask the commissioners. Commissioner Byers,
I don't have any questions. Thanks for being here, Luna.
Commissioner Freiberg,
No questions. Thanks for the input.
Commissioner Darvish,
Yeah, no questions. Thank you, Eden.
Vice Chair Meltzer,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
No questions. Thank you. Feel better.
Well, I'm not going to be the only one to ask questions since you're not feeling well. So thank you so much. It's great to see you, Luna. Please feel better. Next up from Women's Advisory Board, we have Angela De Silva, to be followed by the Social Justice Task Force member, Jonathan K. Wilson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela De Silva. I'm chair of the Women's Advisory Board. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's History Month. So I'm just going to get right to it. I'm going to read the notes we have, and then I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. So for item 1, we have services focusing on and available to unhoused community members. 2, health and mental health services. 3, support services for victims of domestic violence. And then lastly, family court services. Item 2, there is a need for increased access to and availability of transportation services for community members to meet with social service providers. Continued need for services addressing and educating community members regarding DV and sexual assault. And lastly, expansion of eligibility for all services. Item 3, lack of transportation, economic financial barriers, tech barriers, need increased access to technology. Then lastly, communication and outreach. Information on services needs to be more readily available and accessible. So to elaborate, with the domestic violence, I think there needs to be more clarity and education that mental abuse falls under domestic violence and emotional abuse as well. I know BETSEDEC offers legal services, and I would like to expand awareness that these services extend to legal services pertaining to custody battles and situations of domestic violence and emotional manipulation. Next, unhoused people may not know about available services or have phone or internet access, so accessibility is definitely a barrier for many unhoused people. Overall, a lot of people don't know about from our perspective, a lot of people don't know about the services provided by the city in general. I personally have lived in West Hollywood for 18 years, and it took me getting on a board 3 years ago to know how amazing this city is and what we have to offer. And lastly, from unhoused to more elderly, it can be a hard time navigating online and knowing how to access the transportation services. Also, I really love the digital billboards, and I think there could be more because that's a great way to get out information. I think people see them, it's wonderful. And then also I would like to add a potential text line where with like public safety, right now we have the security ambassadors, which is great, but most people don't know about it. So if we could have the number more visible for people, and then if we had a text line where maybe it was like, I heard earlier, like a one-stop shop situation where someone, if they, in whatever capacity, wants help, they can text this, and maybe from there it's like a concierge, or from there they could be given a direction of where to go, who to contact, or the appropriate service can be sent to help. So I don't think I made that last part very clear. So I'm open to any questions. I just wanted to get through because I know I only had 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'll go around with the commissioners for some questions. Commissioner Freiberg.
No, I don't have any questions, but thank you for your input.
Thank you. Commissioner Byers.
No questions. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Meltzer.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, but I do like your idea of the texting or the use of cell phone or some way to communicate with needs and communicate with providers. It seems like on a television, you can text a number and get new hair, but you can't text a number for any type of maybe like violence or any other issue. But if it's a man's issue and it has to do with his virility, you can text
Thank you. Yeah, and there are services, but they're not very for like everything.
Yes.
There's like the mental health one, but if you're uncomfortable at a bar, maybe you can text and the security ambassador comes versus a cop or the Met team. So just making it maybe broader.
At least it's an interesting idea. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Darvish?
Yeah, great job. Just wanted to thank you, and the use of technology, definitely. I'm all in for that. Great idea.
Thank you.
I have no questions. Happy National Women's Day, and thank you for your input.
Thank you for having me.
Our last speaker tonight will be Social Justice Task Force member Jonathan K. Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I would like to cite a few facts that have been identified by our own City of West Hollywood. I'd like to begin with a survey or findings from the City of West Hollywood Social Services Division dated August 16th, 2021, which defined client touches across 11 different social service categories. About 92,417 client touches were identified, with 27.78% of those being people that are BIPOC. So I do represent the Social Justice Task Force, or I should have said at the beginning. I'm also a resident as well as a business owner within the City of West Hollywood. With that said, so BIPOC representing being Black, Indigenous, people of color. So that 27.78%, top three services that are used by people of color are HIV and sexual health and mental health, and then homeless services. In addition to that, we have the largest percentage market share, I guess you could say, for three different service offerings, which happens to be an overlap with homeless services. So that's appeared now twice within the survey. And then also in addition to that, we have a high makeup of the youth and family services and also transgender. That also parlays into different conversations that I've had with both my fellow board members or task force members, as well as some of the constituents that live in the City of West Hollywood and also work around the City of West Hollywood. So one is that we're looking to work with organizations with smaller budgets because they are more geared towards BIPOC in some cases. In addition to that, we would like specifically to have some services for Black, trans individuals, both BIPOC, both male and female for the transgender. The other side, we'd also like to make sure that we address that communication is more widely spread and different marketing strategies are applied. The other piece is that we want to make sure we definitely highlight Essentia, Housing Works, JVS SoCal, McIntyre House, as well as the LA LGBT Center and the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and applaud them for the services that they provided so far, that they provided valuable services for the BIPOC community. So I know that I've said a lot in this, but I do want to say thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Task Force Member Wilson. I will go around and ask if there are any questions. Commissioner Darvish.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Great job. I just wondered if the task force is focused at all on education, like connecting the population to colleges through the sort of grants or whatever's available, or companies that actually invest in the BIPOC population and fund the education. Is that something that you all look at? Or?
Yeah, I thank you for that question. We do have quite a big makeup for people that are seeking employment services, right? So that is something that is highlighted. The other piece with that, of course, is the level of education and training. So that is something that would be of interest to the BIPOC population. Also, in particular, we wanted to have some kind of incubator for businesses and business owners to help stimulate that economic development side of the house. So there are many opportunities for us to have economic empowerment within the City of West Hollywood.
Thank you. Vice Chair Meltzer.
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Freiberg.
No questions, but thank you for your input.
Commissioner Byers.
Just want to share appreciation for the data analysis that you brought to the presentation. It was really useful to sort of think within the context. But no questions. Thanks so much.
Can I add one thing though? The piece that I'm not sure if I did say is that although we are 28% of that makeup, keep in mind that we only comprise 21% of the population within West Hollywood. So we're disproportionately using services.
Thank you. Thanks for providing that context too. It's useful.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Davis, did I call on you? I'm sorry if I'm calling on you twice.
No, actually you didn't. And
okay.
My question is more for staff. This is going to generate a report. We're going to get a report from the gentleman speaking. I'm sorry, my brain isn't working, but we're not, the information that he's giving us is also going to come to us in a formal way. Is that correct?
Correct. So we will include the findings and the report from the needs assessment of access to social services by community members of color in the RFP document. And I believe that some of the statistics that Task Force Member Wilson highlighted were brought from the initial analysis of data received from the agencies and access by community members of color.
Moment of correction. Yes, that was referenced in terms of the makeup for the population in the city of West Hollywood. However, there was an update on social services utilization by members of color, and that was the contract years 2011 and 2020. That's dated actually 16th of August 2021. I think the other one was the 10th of August 2021. So there is a PowerPoint that was referenced for the data that I provided.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
Okay, I have no questions. Task Force Member Wilson, thank you so much. I look forward to the future of this task force. It's very, very exciting. And, I've seen so many task force developed and I'm really excited about this one. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for the support.
Okay, I think we're getting a report on Transgender Economic Empowerment Project by Katie. By the way, commissioners, thank you so much for making that smooth.
Hello, commissioners, and apologies for the delay. For some reason, my camera wasn't turning on, but it's good to see all of your faces. I just wanted to start by doing a little introduction. As you all will recall, the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project, or TEEP, was placed on probation due to a lack of progress towards goal a couple of months ago. And probation is meant as a supportive measure to work really closely with the agencies and assist staff in meeting those contract obligations. So part of probation is coming to you all on a regular basis to provide updates on how things are going and what's going on with the program. So tonight we are joined by Eden and I, Luna, who you've already heard from, and who is the TEEP manager. And so I will pass it over to Luna in order to give the presentation.
Great, thank you, Katie. Excuse me. And so I do have a presentation. I'm going to share my screen right here, and so we can show a PowerPoint for a brief update on our services. 1 second while I pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, I believe this should pop up everything here. And so here is our PowerPoint. So welcome everyone for a brief monthly review for our services. And so this update will cover a little bit about the progress we've made over the strategies we identified over the last visit on January, as well as some of the progress and emerging strategies that we're developing into as we continue to shape course and shift course to be able to meet the goals for this quarter. And so I'm pleased to say that we've been making some progress as far as our outreach and our marketing. As far as our outreach, since January, we have adjusted outreach considerably. We've been attempting all different types of channels to be able to meet people and engage with people in the streets of West Hollywood, as well as through other channels to be able to meet people who are affiliated with the city. We've joined the Midnight Stroll, and unfortunately, we were not able to meet any eligible clients in the one visit that we were able to join on January. In February, they had a staff-only excursion, so we were unable to join. But we also joined the Trans Latino Coalition, and we were able to make a few contacts in evening outreach between the hours of 4 to about 7 p.m. And so we've been identifying that these are the peak hours where folks are typically on the streets, and usually in the eastern side of the West Hollywood, city of West Hollywood, around the Gateway and near the Boulevard towards Plummer Park, but predominantly on the Gateway. So we were able to collaborate with the Trans Latino Coalition through those times, and at those times. We were also able to conduct outreach at the chapel at the Abbey and met a few more eligible clients as well who were working in gig-based economies at the chapel and through different programs, such as the trans night they have called Heavenly Bodies. In these excursions, we've made about 3 contacts and 3 clients through our outreach, about 2 from the chapel, as well as several through others through our clinics, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But as far as the other updates, after a few trial runs, we've been realizing that our outreach schedule will now be moving forward from Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. across the city of West Hollywood. And so typically around this time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll be able to see us out there if you're ever out there at the Gateway or at Plummer Park. And as far as our marketing, we're also very pleased to say that we've launched our Incentivized coaching program. Constituents are now encouraged to apply, and they'll be able to access case management towards the goals identified in the intake. And the program will last, as we reported last in January, will last until September and end with a graduation ceremony. Right now, the cash disbursements and gift cards are being rolled out. At the moment, we have $25 gift cards for Amex. And this will adjust accordingly as we continue on with the year and as we continue on with our case management. And in relation to our legal clinics and consultations, we're also very pleased to announce that we'll be collaborating with the LA County Public Defender's Office and also revitalizing our cell phone connect days with a provider that we've met through our outreach. And eligible clients will be able to attend our first clinic on March 24th. That's the tentative, almost confirmed date. We're just securing final details. But once people are able to confirm, we'll be able to connect our clients with record clearing services in case they have any barriers for employment or job seeking service or job seeking needs, as well as be able to connect with technology so they can remain in touch with case management and providers. Excuse me, providers. The only thing they need is a valid photo ID that's not expired, preferably a state ID, as well as if they're accessing record clearing services, the records must be in LA County. They won't be able to handle any other counties if it's Orange County, Kern County, or Ventura County. And we're scheduled to proceed with the clinics moving forward at Plummer Park on the third Tuesday of the month. So you'll see the dates are April 19th, May 17th, and June 21st. And for our virtual name and gender marker change clinics, our next one is set for March 19th. This will be virtually over Zoom. And the registration for the name change clinic and the other services, I'll be able to link in the chat afterward. Future dates will be determined shortly, and we've been able to connect with 4 individuals so far from the city of West Hollywood through these virtual name change clinics, which is fantastic. In relation to emerging strategies for our project and other ways we're looking to continue to expand our outreach and our collaborations, we'll be joining the Youth Services Department out on the field for more late night outreach at bars and nightclubs, which we've been determining is successful for our gig-based economy trans individuals. And as well as we'll be joining outreach in West Hollywood Park, which has been reporting an increase in homeless people accessing services as well as of late. In conclusion, these are our updates. Thanks so much for your commitment and support. I do have a few flyers I'd like to share with the commission in case you'd like to promote any of these services with any of your contacts or networks. But here's my contact. So you can reach me in either email or the phone number right there. And you can find out more about our Transgender Economic Empowerment Project at the link there. And so I will stop sharing this presentation and I'm going to pull up just a few images here just so people can see some of our upcoming events here. And so here is the flyer for our life coaching program, which is Incentivized. This will be, we'll be encouraging people to enroll and to be able to earn $25 per visit, up to $200. And we'll be also incentivizing referrals as well if they're eligible clients for West Hollywood. And so all you have to do to enroll is fill out a brief questionnaire and contact sheet on our website. This will be on, this is a short link. This is on bit.ly/TNB WeHo. And you'll be able to link with our case managers to be able to get resources for transition care, for career development skills, legal name and gender marker change tips, as well as money saving tips and financial literacy and coaching, all valuable services that we've also heard expressed throughout the presentations today. Here's another alternative flyer as well, just to be able to help conduct the outreach on different channels for folks who prefer a more professional flyer and folks who prefer a more community-based flyer as well. Same information. This is another version of the flyer for life coaching services. And then for our legal name and gender marker change clinic, which is coming up on the 19th, virtually again, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. This will be held over Zoom. The registration link is bit.ly/NGCMAR22. So anyone who needs that service is encouraged to register. Priority will be given for folks who are affiliated with the City of West Hollywood to ensure that we're providing this valuable service to our members of our community. They'll be able to leave with their documents prepared and ready to file in court. And then this is our last flyer for our criminal record clearing service and Cell Phone Connect Day. Just pending some final confirmations, but everything is nearly finalized. And so this is the registration page for our March Connect Day, and people will be able to connect with providers for record clearing services, as well as cell phone and technology. I believe we also have tablets as well if people are willing to pay a small additional fee. But these are highly subsidized for folks who are receiving public benefits. We just need to ensure that people have a valid ID and a valid public benefits card. And so these are our flyers. That concludes everything I have to share, and I will turn it back to the commission for any other questions or comments. Thank you for allowing me to make an update.
Thank you, Luna. And actually, I just wanted to jump in really quickly and say, Luna, if you want to send me those flyers, I'm happy to share with the commission after the meeting. And then I also just wanted to announce that Roger Coggin is also here from TEEP. He is the legal director at the LGBT Center. And I apologize, Roger, for not introducing you earlier. I just wanted to let the commission know that you're here.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Katie, for bearing with us and being very supportive over some very, very challenging months. So thank you. And I want to thank the commission as well.
And if I can just briefly interject here as well, I also want to speak to the other services provided at the Legal Services Department at the center. As people have expressed, support for survivors of sexual assault and violence, immigrants, asylum seekers, and our houseless and our tenants who need this legal support. In addition to our program, there are 4 other programs at our departments who offer substantive services for these needs. And if you would like to find out more about our services, you can check out our website at lalgbtcenter.org and select the legal services tab as well for more info.
Thank you. Katie, anything?
Nothing more for me.
Okay, I'll go around and see if anyone has anything to ask. Commissioner Byers, for either Roger or Katie or Luna.
No, nothing from me tonight. Good work. Thanks so much for being here.
Commissioner Freiberg.
No questions from me. Thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Davis.
No questions. Thank you for the presentation. It's, in the times we live in different states, this is a very important issue, and I hope we can keep our finger on it.
Commissioner Darvish.
Yeah, no questions. Just thank you and great job on the marketing campaign materials.
Vice Chair Meltzer.
I do have one question. Luna, thank you for that wonderful presentation. The marketing materials, what I'm not understanding, it's just my brain. trans and non-binary life coaching, $25 per visit. I don't know what that means.
Thank you for asking that. I want to clarify that we're offering incentives. So either cash or gift card. At the moment, we have Amex gift cards for $25 value. And so we can encourage people who need that support financially to access our services. Oftentimes we're meeting with folks who are homeless, food insecurity, or just general financial assistance for general needs like Band-Aids, clothes, socks, so on, are often a very big concern. And so to be able to help encourage people to keep coming back for services, to keep coming back for case management, we're offering these incentives. So we're not charging a fee, we're offering these as incentives.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Meltzer. I just want to say hi to Roger, of course, and Luna. I've seen incentivized programs work very well, so I'm in full support of that. And I just want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you all. Thank you again for allowing me to provide a brief update.
Feel better.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, preparation for the 2022-25 social services funding process. I believe I'm handing this over to David, who will then hand it over to Leslie. Yes? Don't hand it back to me.
Good evening again, commissioners, and I'm going to share it with Leslie. I told Leslie she can jump in at any time. So we wanted to begin to provide trainings to the commission on some of the required documents that you'll be seeing in the social services proposals. And first, forgive me for folks who, this is very familiar and maybe it's going to be basic, but I think everybody here is at different levels. So I'm going to just walk through it. The two documents that we'll review, we're going to go over tonight, the Exhibit A scope of services. And then I think at our second meeting in April, the Exhibit B budget justification. So, and I pulled up I added a scope of service from one of our current contracts. I thought it would be a little bit more applicable. So I'm going to share my screen, and Jenny sent that out to you right before the meeting. And then we're going to walk through it. I welcome questions at any point. So let me share the screen. So as I mentioned, this is one of the required documents that you will see in each proposal. And really this is the Exhibit A is really the basis of your contract. This is what, just really spells out what the city is receiving for the funding. So the Exhibit A that we're looking at tonight is from Saban Community Clinic. It's for the current year. And we take this Exhibit A once it's been approved, and then we create a program report. So we get a report from each of the contracted agencies quarterly based on this. The program report looks very similar to this. So I'm going to walk through it. The service categories, that describes exactly the type of service that is being provided. Along with this Exhibit A, we also require a narrative. So they give us detail on how the services are provided, who the target population is, and just how folks can access the service. They really walk you through it. But we're just going to go through this form tonight, that you will see a narrative that will give you a lot of detail in each of those proposals. So the first is the service categories. That describes the services that are going to be provided to the community. You see with Saban, they have general health and medical services. They have dental services, behavioral health services, insurance enrollment services. The next column, the unit of service, this describes how they're going to report. What does the service look like, and how are they going to report on it? We want to always have at least one category where you see new unduplicated persons. And basically that's just unique individuals. So if David Juni comes in for health and medical services, he's counted when he comes in the door. He may continue to receive service, but he's only counted once. So that new unduplicated, that really tells us exactly how many community members have accessed that service. New and ongoing persons, that's like your caseload. So David Juni comes in, he's counted once under that new unduplicated, and then for new ongoing, he's counted the first time and then again. It's a caseload. So you collect, it'd be like a caseload for case management services. They after that is patient visits. That's explanatory. It is the number of visits that community members have accessed. Dental services, they provide it the same way. New unduplicated, how many unique individuals come through the door. New and ongoing, how many folks were new, and then how many folks continued receiving the service. It's during this quarterly time frame. And then behavioral health services, we just asked for new and ongoing, number of patient visits, and insurance enrollment, new and unduplicated. So when you get to the numerical goals, we split it out. We want to have, obviously, we want them to report on West Hollywood. And then we also want total project. And it gives you a sense of the proportion of the contract that is accessed by West Hollywood. It also fits in, and we'll get into it when we go into the budget. But if you see like that the first category, the general health and medical services, the goal is that they will reach 125 West Hollywood community members each quarter. This is a quarter, so it's not a month, it's each quarter. And then for the total project, they're seeing 4,000. That includes that 125. But it gives you a sense of it's a bigger picture of how many folks they serve. And then it also gives you a sense of, okay, so how much out of their total budget should we be allocating? So we say in this first general health and medical services, we're asking the goal, agreed upon goal, and we go back and forth with the agencies. We're just not pulling out these numbers, out of the sky. We want to be reasonable, but we also want to get, the value for the funding we provide. And we also, Leslie always reminds me, but I always say it is a goal. It's a goal. Folks, as you've seen the reports, they don't always reach it. If folks are significantly under goal, then as you see tonight with TEEP, we try to support them in reaching that goal. But it is a goal. So 125 for the quarter, and then times it by 4, and you've got that annual goal for West Hollywood. So we're asking Saban to reach 500 West Hollywood unique individuals to provide general health and medical services. And then they've got their total project. They're seeing 4,000 individuals. That's the whole area that they serve, not just West Hollywood. And then obviously times 4 is 16,000. Once again, as I mentioned, that new and ongoing, that's really a caseload. It's like, okay, who came in that's brand new, and then who returned? And we are going to report that. That's why it's larger than slightly larger than that 125. We expect that people are coming back for general health and medical services throughout the quarter, that they don't just come once. Get you a lot of information. It depends on the different services, but obviously, especially for general health and medical services, we want people to come back. We want people to be regular with their healthcare for many different reasons. So that new and ongoing, that caseload, that's always going to be larger than the new and unduplicated. For the annual number, we have NA not applicable because it really doesn't make sense, because that's not a unique number, 150. That's me going, that's Leslie going, that's me going, I was already counted as new once, that's me coming back. So that there's no reason to have an annual goal. It doesn't tell us anything. It wouldn't mean anything because there's a lot of repeat in that. But that 150 does, because we know that folks are coming back. We want to be sure that folks are coming back each quarter. So whenever you see new and ongoing, it'll just be a quarterly goal. It won't be annual. Just as it's not meaningful to get that annual number. Patient visits is self-explanatory. That's literally just reporting how many visits they have a quarter. We're asking for 500 for West Hollywood, times it by 4, 2,000, and you see the proportion of West Hollywood to the total project. So it's similar for the other, the other categories here, smaller numbers, but dental services, the agreed upon goal is that they will bring in 25 new unduplicated West Hollywood community members into service each quarter, 100 for the year. And then 35 is their caseload, is their new and their ongoing number. Once again, there's no annual number for that, just the quarter. Patient visits 80. Behavioral health services, we asked them, we added these two categories after we had entered the contract this cycle. We knew that these were important services. We knew that our budget was covering some of the costs for personnel and other expenses related to this. And we said, you know what, we want to get a report on that. We want the community to know what Saban is providing. But with that said, we didn't have these two service categories, behavioral health and insurance enrollment, on previous scopes of services. So we didn't want to set a goal, based on, kind of on nothing, no experience. So we asked them to report actual. So basically just exactly that. Report on how many West Hollywood community members are coming in quarterly to receive behavioral health services. They will just do that because we just asked for new and ongoing. So we actually shouldn't even have that report actual in the annual. That should be not applicable. We did the same with patient visits. We want to know, just report how many each quarter and then how many annual, and then the same also with the insurance enrollment services. We knew how important insurance enrollment is. It's in with the HIV Zero initiative. And, it's just in this day and age, we want to make sure that our community members have as much access to benefit enrollments, benefit counselors, enrollment services as possible. So we didn't have numbers on that before. It was important. We felt it was important to get these numbers. So we said, you know what, just give us the actual and we'll look, if they come in, if Spawn comes in for this, the next funding cycle, we'll have a basis on what they were able to provide last year. And then we'll be able to set a, agreed upon goal. So the service categories, the unit of service, on how it's measured, how they report, and then the numerical goals for both West Hollywood and total project. And then the outcome objective at the bottom. And that is really, we refer to it as, what does the community member walk away with overall that they didn't have prior to receiving this agency's services? So we want something that's kind of general, that's kind of an overarching goal. And so it should be, it should be time specific. It should be measurable. And then, as I said, it should give, a picture of what our community member has in their back pocket now after receiving the service from the contracted agency. There, how's that for good? Les, you want to jump?
I was just going to say another way to look at the outcome objective is to just, what kind of impact is the program having? And as David said, this is something that should be measurable, because we ask each of the agencies at the end of the contract year. You see this in the Q4 year-end report. You see in the narrative how it is that folks measured the outcome, the goal stated in the outcome objective, and what that was. So here they're asking that a minimum of 50% of all West Hollywood patients are tested for depression with a follow-up plan, and and receive a follow-up plan. And this is an agency that I monitor, so I know that 50% of all West Hollywood patients did in fact receive a test for depression and a follow-up plan if one was required.
So we are welcome to any questions. As I said, in addition to the scope, this format, you will also see a narrative that really walks you through, gives you more detail on the service and how it's provided. That you'll see that in the proposals, and then we have that also as part of the final contract.
And I just want to add one thing, David, if you can scroll so we can see right below. Yeah, keep going. Oh, no, I guess it's not on there. Oh, it's on the program report. We do offer on the program report a reminder of the difference between new and ongoing and new unduplicated.
Great. So David, if you want to leave that up, I'll call on each commissioner and then they can ask a question. Is that all right?
Yes,
Is that what you prefer?
that would be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Byers, anything?
I don't think I have questions. I really appreciate the time you're spending to go through each line. I reserve the right to come to you with questions when I have them though after this. Thanks.
Commissioner Freiberg,
Ditto.
Commissioner Davis,
I've been here way too long because I actually understand this form now. But do ask questions. If you don't get something, do ask questions because staff is very good about answering it and answering them. So don't be afraid. If it doesn't make sense, maybe it doesn't make sense and we need to know why. Thank you.
Commissioner Darvish.
Yeah, great job, both David and Leslie. I like the format is really easy to follow, and it could be just my handicap. I know I've asked this before as I joined this commission, like the goal, the quarterly goal on top, the first one, quarterly goal of 125. How is that sort of taken from last year, or is that just moved year over year? Or do we look at a population and say, okay, this percentage of this population may need this service? I'm kind of stuck there with how do we pick that goal? How many, people in our city get the service?
I can take a stab at that. If you, go ahead, David.
No, go ahead, Les.
Okay. The goals are mutually agreed upon by the agency and staff. There's a little bit of negotiation that might take place. The agency, you'll see it when you review the applications. The agencies will propose goals. We'll decide on, a funding amount, and then those goals get, tweaked based on a variety of things, the dollar amount for funding and, capacity to provide that service with that amount of funding. But as David said earlier, these are goals. So if Saban Community Clinic, to use this example, were to say, well, here's what we're doing. We know from our clinical, medical records that we're serving 110 new unduplicated people quarterly. Because it's a goal, something to strive for, we wouldn't accept 110. We'd want to push them to a number like this, 125, because it's something we want people to do outreach. We want people to, we want people to know about the service and come in for service. So we're not interested in funding only what's being done, but what's being done and then some to encourage more service provision.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. So we go based on history. Yeah. Thank you.
Vice Chair Meltzer.
No, thank you. Thanks, David and Leslie.
Sure.
I think real quick, Commissioner Palmieri, to Commissioner Darvish.
Oh, I'm sorry. It froze for some reason.
To Commissioner Darvish's point, we didn't have a history, Commissioner Darvish, for behavioral health services and insurance enrollment. And that's why we put report actual. Next year, we'll have a history. So if they come in, for these same categories, we'll be able to look back on what they accomplished this year. We'll look at the budget again. And as Leslie said, we may take that number and push it up a little bit. So it's a goal.
Okay, Vice Chair Meltzer.
You called on me already.
I froze for a minute. Did you answer?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Yeah, I did.
Do you have a question?
No.
Okay, thanks. first time and calling Councilmember Duran and saying, I don't know why you have faith in me because I'm dizzy from this paper. And then it worked out. So I think we're done with that particular section. Anything else? David?
Don't hesitate to reach out. We are happy to, go over this with you individually. And I think also just, take a breath. You don't have to be experts. We want to introduce this to you. I think, if I was brand new to it, I would want to look at those service categories. What are we getting? And I'd want to understand what that is. What falls under general health and medical? And you'll see that in the narrative. What are they referring to with behavioral health? Well, now with the work that Corey and her team are doing with the Behavioral Health Crisis Response Unit, I think behavioral health has been, has been illuminated to us. But what exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about mental health counseling? Are we talking about substance use? So anyway, those would be the things that I would look at, and then I'd look to the narrative to get my answers. The numbers are interesting. It's hard when you're kind of on the outside to know, is that reasonable? Should we be asking for more? But anyway, so go easy on yourselves, reach out to staff, and we just want to introduce it so it's not foreign to you when you look at the proposals. You'll have many opportunities to ask questions once you get those proposals as well. That's it for me.
I actually have a question too. Go ahead.
Mr. Byers?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, to that point, David, if these are the broader service categories, and then under those service categories are specific services that are delivered, is there sort of a panel or a way that we'll be able to see all those individual services aligned, next to each other, and then the providers that are providing them? Like I realize that many organizations or service providers are going to be providing a specific service. And I just wonder if there's a way to visibilize which services are offered by the varying entities. Am I speaking clearly?
Obviously you will have access to all of the proposals. We will bring, when we do that analysis, when we're, considering the recommendations that we will make to you, to the Human Services Commission, and we do look for, we look at all the agencies that provide quote unquote, like services. So we look at the agencies who are providing, mental health services. Currently you've got JFS, you've got the center, you've got Saban, because it does fall under behavioral health services. So we look at that, and we look at the target populations. We want to make sure that we've got services that are spread out over the various populations in West Hollywood. And then we will look at, we get into the detail and say, okay, so we'll look at the budget and figure out, how much does it cost for an individual counseling session, and we'll compare that. We won't have necessarily a spreadsheet for you for each category, but we do, when we make those recommendations, we are referencing that. We are referencing, the services proposed and who they're going to reach. So you get a sense of, what we're looking at before we make those recommendations.
Thank you.
For like services.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see all the commissioners, so if anyone has a question, can you just say your name?
Joy, I just have a quick question. In the paperwork we got, it mentioned a commissioner question worksheet has been developed. Did we get that already? Is that something that's coming down the road?
It's coming down the road. You'll receive that, Commissioner Freiberg, when you receive the proposals.
Okay, because I kind of wanted to get a look at it ahead of time.
That would be fine.
Thank you.
We can provide that. I will follow up. I misspoke. I'll say this real quick at the beginning. We will send out those summaries of the input from the boards, everybody you heard from. We will send that out following this meeting. So we don't need to wait till next month. And we will send out the that form for questions on the proposals as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner have a question or comment? Okay, can we go full screen so I could see?
Yeah, sorry about that.
And thank you very much, David and Leslie.
You're welcome.
Sorry, now I'm having a hard time getting rid of my screen. Jenny, get me out of here.
I'm trying.
Let's see. Stop share. Here we go.
Thanks. Did David leave?
I'm still here.
All right. All right, so there's no more questions, and I think we will, new business none, excluded consent none, items from staff seems to be the next thing up. Am I skipping something?
No.
Okay, because I thought I had this laid out perfectly. So items from staff?
So just very briefly, I'll give you an update on services provided in response to COVID-19 with BETSETIC eviction prevention and defense programming. They have now opened 210 cases to date, and they have resolved 140. The Alliance for Housing and Healing, for their rental assistance program, they have served 109 new and unduplicated community members. You know what that means now. And you knew it before, but. And then NCJW has served 576 unique community members. Just a reminder, we are taking a full update on services provided in response to COVID to council at their March 21st meeting, and attached to that report will be a proposed contract amendment to the BETSETIC eviction prevention and defense program, and also for CES, the Coalition for Economic Survival. And so that contract amendment for BETSETIC will take us, if approved by council, from April 1st through the end of September. So it would line us up with this social services contract year. And then the CES contract, which sits in rent stabilization and housing, that will be for another full year. So it'll start from April 1st if approved and go through March 31st of 2023. Tomorrow, Derek and Joan, I believe, are staffing our HIV and substance use prevention providers collaborative. If you're interested in attending, let us know. We'll make sure that you get the Zoom link. On their agenda will be an update on the needs assessment for community members of color. So the Maroon Society will be reporting. They will have a report on the HIV Elders Program. Brian Risley from APLIE Health will report on that. And then they will have a report from Men's Health Foundation on their Rapid Results Clinic. If you'd like that Zoom meeting info, let us know. We'll send it out, or I can get maybe Jenny to send it out. And I believe that was it. That sound right, Les?
Yes, nothing additional from me.
Oh, no, actually, sorry. I also wanted to introduce to everyone the newest addition to the Human Services and Rent Stabilization Department, Joyce Britton, who is on there's Joyce. And welcome, Joyce. She will be our support staff for the Human Services Commission right now. Jenny is hovering over her, or Joyce is, but in a safe distance. Anyway, so we brought Joyce on. Joyce filled the position, for the folks who've been around, that was formerly held by Jeff Book. So she is the department's admin staff. But Christoph Schroeder, our director, has been very generous and knows the demands for admin support for social services. So we get first dibs. So anyway, but Joyce will be our support moving forward. So wanted everybody to welcome Joyce. We're excited to have her. And that's
anything
it.
from Leslie, anything? No? Okay, Jenny, is there any other public comment? I see a hand up.
Hi, Chair. We have a board member, Wright, who wants to speak under public comment, but I wanted to take a moment to ask the public, if you're in the room and you want to make a public comment, this is your time to use the raised hand feature in Zoom application, and we'll call you up afterwards. Zakia, if you wanted to go on camera and unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes to speak. Are you ready?
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just had a question looking at, and maybe this is a follow-up. I don't know if you can answer or David can answer my question during public comment, but looking at the graphic that you had up, I guess it made me sort of wonder, how does social services figure out how much funding to provide to the service providers? Like, is it a per patient sort of assessment to determine like how much goes towards these folks? And is there a way to check that the sort of the value that we're getting for the money that the city's providing to those providers is competitive? You know, is there a way to look for, you know, to make sure we're getting sort of like the best for what we're paying? And that's my question. Thank you all.
So David, I don't know that the commission can answer that legally, so maybe staff would want to jump in.
Absolutely. I mentioned briefly, you know, how we, what we base our recommendations on when I addressed Commissioner Byers' question about similar services. So we do look at, in the case of Saban, we look at the services that they're providing. We look at similar services through Men's Health, through Planned Parenthood. So we do get a sense of what is the cost for a patient visit. Even though, you know, you can only go so far because there are different types of healthcare, but we do look at like services and what is the average cost of that service. You know, obviously medical services are, you know, fairly expensive, but we do that analysis. We, we open up the RFP to, you know, to everyone basically. So we want a competitive process. We do have a history, you know, with many of these providers. So some of it is based on history and based on previous contracts. But, you know, frankly, Planned Parenthood that's a new contract. Men's Health is a relatively new contract. So we try to get it out as, you know, as broad as we can for applicants. And with that, we also, you know, this is a very unique community with unique populations, with unique needs. So part of this process too is really, you know, making informed recommendations that these agencies are competent with serving, you know, our community, the LGBTQ community that is disproportionately have the number of older adults compared with county, a community that's severely, you know, continue to be severely impacted by HIV and AIDS. So long answer, board member Wright, but yes, it's competitive. We look at like services and we do our very best to get, you know, the value for, you know, the city's funding.
I think that's what we can say on that, right, David? Thank you. All right. Is there any other public comment, Jenny?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Items from commissioners, I'll go around, please. I'll start with Commissioner Darvish.
To make a comment in support of the people of Ukraine, just being in that situation many years ago in almost that part of the country. I was raised on Caspian Sea on the Iranian side, but on the Russian border and not far from Ukraine, and all those amazing people and the country. Just watching what's happening brought back a lot of memories. I know it's hard if you're not an immigrant, you don't have to leave your home and your family. It's hard to. I know you understand it, but it's just hard to grasp what feelings, you know, are inside of those people leaving. My heart goes to them. I saw a little boy, I think it was 6 or 7, that was broadcasted on. He was walking by himself and just sobbing, just mind-boggling that, you know, what they're going through. So And I'm proud of our city for, being proactive. I know when the Afghanistan deal was going on with people exiting, I think our council had looked at sort of, support for an infrastructure or processes in place for those people that may come to our city and seek help. So again, we've done a lot of great work, but I know all of you are watching the news and your heart goes to them, but I wanted to just mention that and give support to the Ukrainians also in our city that have family members in Ukraine. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Darvish. Commissioner Davis.
Quick report. I went to the Trans Advisory Board meeting, which was last week. And this Trans Day of Remembrance is March the 31st. And then they were looking for members to represent them at Lesbian and Queer Women's Visibility Week, which was April 26th through May the 2nd. And one other thing. Anyway, it has escaped me. So that's all I can think of. So thank you.
Commissioner Byers.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few things I just wanted to share. First, happy International Women's Day. It's one of my favorite days of the year, and I really I'm sad I didn't get a chance to better go around and spread flowers throughout the community, but glad that so many folks tonight spread honors to that. So thanks. To that note, just really appreciate the information provided by board members and commissioners here tonight, representing the priorities of those various bodies that they represent. There's a few things I heard that I just sort of want to underline in the ways that maybe our commission won't get to deal with, but I heard them and I just want to sort of reflect them. The need for affordable housing or housing that is affordable to people in the city. Just always want to remind folks that under the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, our city has a responsibility to produce nearly 4,000 units of new housing in the next 8 to 10 years. So that's going to mean a lot of new transformation in the years to come. And while we're always thinking about the next cycle, it's a 3-year contract cycle here at Social Services, and this housing cycle is 8 years. So we're thinking long-term, big picture. And I just sort of always want to hold that vision with the city. I also heard that there's a need for human services to address transportation gaps, particularly as they impact our seniors and community members living with disabilities. That feels like something we can address in ways that maybe Metro is falling short. The broader regional players, we as a city may be able to do things better there. And I'm just really interested to think about that. And then I just also heard that there's a desire for increase in services to support survivors and victims of sexual violence, legal services. There's a number of different things there. To that point, I wanted to thank council members Shine and John and Erickson, for and the Women's Advisory Board member Keely Field for their leadership on the drink spike test strips that were passed at last council meeting just a couple of weeks ago. And I say that because it brings me to a question I had or maybe wanted to ask, that there was a joint women's safety task force that was sparked with members of the Public Safety Commission and the Women's Advisory Board. I saw that this body has taken a tour, I think, of the rape crisis facility, and they've been having a lot of conversations that to me feel like there's an overlap with human services. And I was excited to see that was happening, but then also confused about why or if we were a part of that conversation in some way. So I didn't want to make an assumption that we were intentionally left out or that something happened, but just ask if there's room or a reason why this commission wasn't engaged in that task force, just because of the overlap and the ability to maybe address some of the concerns through our upcoming social services cycle. So I'll put a pin in that question to be answered by staff. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was I attended the Public Safety Commission meeting last month and heard the conversation from commissioners around another important contract in our city, the sheriff's contract. And I just want to sort of recognize the way that ongoing discussion overlaps with our responsibilities here as a commission too, to think about the gaps and the opportunities to differently expand services throughout the city. So I think that's all I needed to say. Sorry, it was a mouthful. And the real question for David Juni or staff, or anyone who can answer, is around the task force between Women's Advisory Board and Public Safety Commission. Thanks.
David, do you have your hand up? Okay. All right.
I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Darvish before I forgot. the social services team, specifically Derek and Dee, have developed a page for resources for Ukrainian refugees, and it is on the social services page of the city's website. So I just wanted to follow up for that. And I apologize, Commissioner Byers, if you could repeat your question about.
Yeah, it was about the Joint Women's Safety Task Force, I think is its name. I may not have its name totally correct. And I was just curious about the origins of that commission, and given the subject matter overlap with human services, if there was connection to or potential for engagement from our commission there.
And I'm going to have to follow up and get you the
Okay.
correct response.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Freiberg.
I just wanted to thank all the boards and commissions that gave their input tonight. I just have a couple requests from staff. We heard a lot about counseling and support for rape survivors and sexual assault, but I was wondering if we get statistics on that. I feel like we don't ever get any information on that. It seems like it might fall in public safety, but then, you know, everyone's coming to us requesting, you know, counseling support. So I was wondering if we could get some information on, you know, what's happening in our city on that. And then the second thing is the Disability Advisory Board does have a survey on transportation. I know Commissioner Darvish had asked about that, and they do. I think they had one about every year. So maybe if we can get some of that information as well. And then Commissioner Karen, what was her last name? I got messed up because it got mixed up.
Myers.
Yeah, so she's from Rent Stabilization. She had mentioned, you know, new people moving into the city all the time, and they get that rent stabilization letter. Is there a way we could just throw in that social service booklet in there when we send a letter, just so they know what's going on in the city and what we offer?
I'll touch base with Jonathan Hollop, the manager of Rent Stabilization, and I wouldn't think that would be a problem.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Vice Chair Meltzer.
Thank you. You know, to that point about new tenants in the city, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I remember seeing very big booklets and folders with all kinds of information about the city given to new tenants. So it did exist. I don't know if it still does, but you might do some research about that. It was wonderful. And I saw it because a new tenant in my building got it. I just don't know where it came from. Anyway, I went to the Senior Advisory Board meeting, and they had a presentation about the Tech 4 program, which is designed to help older adults become better acquainted with technology. And that too was brought up a lot this evening about the lack of technology for not only older adults. There are probably a lot of people who lack technology, and also the double issue of Russian speaking population and then translating it. So I think that's something that we really need to work on. And on a less important note, I also attended the JFS's Great Awe Program, the first improvisation class for the month, and we are looking for improvisers. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, I have just a couple of things. Boom received a commendation from the City Council for its success online, which made us so grateful. I have something said, and I wasn't going to share it, but this gentleman deserves it. He was a friend of mine. His name is Frank Alessi. I'd like to adjourn in his name. He's a longtime WeHo resident. He's a marriage and family therapist, and he taught a brain power class at the LA LGBT Center, as well as writing classes. He loved to hang at the coffee shop there, make friends with young and old. And he left a significant amount of his estate to the LA LGBT Center. And we all, you know, we need to be thankful for folks like that remember us in the future. And I'll miss him as my whole block is missing him. But I did want to say his name, Frank Alessi. And good news, that was bad news. Good news is I will have a bionic knee the next time I see you guys. And that's all I have to say. Anyone else? Okay. All right, I would like to adjourn this meeting now. David, we went 1 hour and 59 minutes. So who was closer, me or you?
Hey.
You?
I said 8 o'clock.
I thought I was. I thought you said 8:30. Oh, gosh. All right, I'd like to adjourn the meeting, and we will be back on the 20. Oh, my gosh. I had the paper in front of me. What is the next date that we're coming back?
Oh, gosh.
April
Jimmy.
Wait, hold on. I have it.
April 12th at 6 o'clock.
What time? What day?
April 12th at 6 o'clock via Zoom.
She
Thank you so much.
She saves us all. All right, folks.